Greetings, Tauntauns. You've intercepted another transmission from the USW News Desk, your source for happenings throughout the Star Wars galaxy. It's been another eventful week, and with less than a week to go before the world premiere of Star Wars The Force Awakens, it's time to go strap yourselves in, because here's where the news begins. With the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens upon us, Lucasfilm ringleader Kathleen Kennedy quashed longtime rumors and speculation of the possible return of the galaxy's most reviled character, Binks. The rumor, which took over social media for the better part of a week and lingered like Bantha Poodoo in the hot suns of Tatooine, caused some fans to reach for the hyperdrive lever, threatening to boycott the new film if the Gungan did indeed make an appearance. Kennedy also relieved fans' angst over the possible return of those small, cuddly little man-eaters known as Ewoks, stating that neither the Gungan nor the Ewoks will be making an appearance in the new film. Both characters were created by George Lucas with the intended purpose of making profit from related toys. No word yet as to whether the current toy sales will be harmed by this latest decision by both Disney and Lucasfilm. In related news, the Star Wars prequels took another hit this week when the Center for Disease Control announced a deadly flu strain was on the forefront this season. This superbug, which is reportedly difficult to diagnose and has a mortality rate of 50%, has been labeled by medical professionals as the Phantom Menace. Symptoms include nausea, fever, night sweats, and a general disposition for bad dialogue. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms or a drop in midichlorians, please contact a medical professional or watch the original trilogy immediately. We reached out to fans of the prequels for comment on the story, but couldn't find any. Finally, much has been made of the original trilogy stars, both Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher's recent and massive weight loss leading up to the filming of The Force Awakens. Fisher, who told Good Housekeeping magazine that she lost close to a quarter of her body weight, wryly states, "Producers only wanted to hire 3/4 of me." Hamill, who lost more than 50 pounds himself in his return to the role that made him famous, also weighs in, stating that his diet now consists of all things that don't taste good. Rumors surrounding this dramatic change for the two beloved actors, however, turned to reality this week when the two stars appeared together on the Dr. Oz show and announced their plans to unveil a new Star Wars diet plan just in time for the new year. No word yet from PETA regarding the use of bantha milk as a diet's primary source of protein. In this week's unmistakably Star Wars fan spotlight, we look no further than the Mos Eisley of cyberspace, Craigslist. Hoping to sell her refrigerator, St. Louis superfan Ashley Riley unleashes prose so eloquent, I'm actually kind of saddened she wasn't part of the writing process for the prequels. Here's what her ad reads. Darth Refrigerator is currently banished to the cold, dark confines of our garage, plotting his return to power in a kitchen far, far away. Steely and black on the outside, white and cold on the inside. The frost is strong with this one. You may have seen other comparable refrigerators on Craigslist, but these aren't the models you're looking for. Don't fall for some crappy used fridge. It's a trap! Darth Refrigerator is barely a year old and is in excellent condition. The fact that you'll be receiving a practically new $1,300 fridge for a mere $550 will have you running for the dark side. The amount of space for food in this fridge, Lord, is impressive. Most impressive. Given its size and ability to conceal and hold 12 dozen Princess Leia-sized Cinnabons hostage, I have found the lack of interest in Darth Refrigerator disturbing. Help me, Craigslist refrigerator buyer. You're my only hope. We'll consider trading for Han Solo and a cookie. Mrs. Riley, you had me at Princess Leia-sized Cinnabons. No word yet on whether Mrs. Riley also plans on listing additional items from her collection, including a display case for the Star Wars prequels. And now, for real-time weather in the Star Wars galaxy, let's check in with our on-the-spot weather correspondent, Tyler Sharp. Tyler, how's the weather on Jakku today?
It's hot.
Thanks, Tyler. That sound means one thing. It's time for this week's news from a certain point of view. George Lucas, creator of Star Wars, turned instant billionaire 4 times over, recently reviewed and viewed the completed version of The Force Awakens. In an interview following the film, Lucas states, "I think the fans are going to love it. It's very much the kind of movie that they are looking for." Many fans viewed this, his response, as a passive-aggressive, half-handed compliment with Lucas refusing to actually announce to the world, yes, I liked the film. Look, Mr. Lucas, George, we get it. Your idea for the next installment was very different from those who chunked down $4 billion for the right to make the saga they wanted to. We get that your movie making is all about rich storylines and on-point dialogue. But sir, we hope you'll eventually find some room in your heart to actually embrace that which you've birthed. Either way, Mr. Lucas, you've got to tip your hat to Disney because they took a page out of your playbook. Disney has taken the already bloated cash cow you created and pumped her full of steroids, making her perhaps the most dominant force in merchandising history, something even you should be proud of, sir. And for those of you still concerned that Mr. Lucas didn't like the film, relax. He's just performed the ultimate Jedi mind trick on you. His words, don't forget, were, "This is the film you're looking for." That's it for this week's news, my little tauntauns. For continued insights and musings, be sure to check us out online at unmistakably.starwars.com. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at unmistakably.sw, where we'll be broadcasting live on Periscope next Thursday night, December 17th, immediately before and after the world premiere of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That's the news, and I am out of here.
I need a word. Hello there, I'm Alejandro, and welcome back to another edition of How Not to Talk to a Woman with Anakin Skywalker. Last time, our good friend and mentor, Anakin, gave us some demonstrations on not how to approach the topic of confessing your love. In this section of How Not to Talk to a Woman, or Hantatao, Little Orphan Annie, will continue to demonstrate the improper way of behaving around your lady. Let's say you have approached your topic of love, confessing your love, expressing your feelings, but nothing really happened.
The guns, they've stopped.
Things may be going in a different direction.
You're starting to become a Jedi. I'm a senator.
There could be another guy.
All right, I get the picture.
Or you could constantly be putting her in danger.
Good job.
Regardless, your behavior might be an influential persuader to counter those misfires. This then begs the question, how should I not behave? The general rule of thumb is to be mature. Act your age, not your shoe size. But be a man, not a child. But don't just take my word for it. You decide for yourself if some of these are attractive or not.
It's worse. He's overly critical. He never listens. And I slaughtered them like animals. What have I done?
I'm really ahead of him.
And lastly, when your mentor tells you to shut the Mustafar up, you better do it.
We will find out who's trying to kill you, Padme. I promise you.
We will not exceed our mandate, my young Padawan learner, and you will pay attention to my lead.
Why?
What? We will do exactly as the Council has instructed, and you will learn your place, young one.
And he'll always be that little boy I knew on Tatooine.
If you don't follow these things, and yet you somehow end up with the woman of your dreams, then you may have kids sounding like this.
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Still aren't convinced? Well, how about some good old-fashioned comparing and contrasting between father and son?
I hate them. It's not true. I hate you. That's impossible. It's not fair.
Just isn't fair.
Put the ship down. Over the ship.
Wait a minute, where'd she go? Bring her back. Play back the entire message.
I can't leave her.
I'm gonna kill her.
Where are you going? Looks like I'm going nowhere. There's nothing I can do about it right now.
I don't care. Put the ship down.
You forget it! I already tried it! It's magnetically sealed!
No! Not again.
Put that down. I just don't understand why we can't see Yoda now.
He doesn't understand. On the left, taking a nap.
Ben, tell him I'm right.
At the end of the day, if you are a whiner, don't procreate. Be a man. Be mysterious. Be yourself. Unless you're Annie. Thank you for joining me, my good friend and mentor, Anakin, on another edition of How Not to Talk to a Woman. Tune in next time, where Anakin explains that there are some things that you should not say out loud, or else you will be mistaken to be a stalker, or maybe something worse. May the Force be with you, always.
What time are we?
The meeting, yeah. But the mind your own beeswax sign up.
We should probably do that, you know.
Let's do it. I'm a fan. No, I'm a fan. So here we are. We're a week out. I got the bad news last night. Bad news. I don't know. Is it right to say bad news that all of a sudden that my daughter's school says that their winter holiday performance is going to be the same night at the same time that I have tickets for the world premiere of The Force Awakens in IMAX 3D.
Yeah, that's bad news.
Who plans this at the school? I want names. I
Yeah.
want butts.
Yeah.
This is absolutely ridiculous.
But the good news is that you'll see it the next morning.
I will see it the next morning.
And I'll text you
thank
updates
you.
throughout.
Thank you. Checking my phone during the holiday
I'll tell you
performance.
who dies. And
Oh, good.
Thank you. Every plot point, don't worry. You'll sort of see it before you see
I have
it.
no reason to go to the film the next day, basically. Outstanding.
Yeah. So it is a week out, man.
We're a week out. When this was first announced, it seemed like forever ago.
Well, when we were at Celebration,
Yeah.
in April.
It was very foreign, very surreal.
It was the thought of sitting in the theater seats and watching it. It was hard to imagine it, and it just seemed so far away. Are you worried about anything with the movie? Do you have this like secret fear? I posted that video, where it showed like all the reaction to the Phantom Menace. Like people
everybody came
out
like, wonderful.
Yeah.
Honestly, no, because people have asked me that. Like, you're doing so much buildup, and there's so much anticipation, and are you going to be let down? And no, like I don't think there's anything that could possibly happen that's going to let me down. And based on two things. One is I'm going into it with, like, there's not going to be a perfect movie, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be things that be like, oh, interesting, but like I don't have this, I guess, heightened sense of like, it's got to be perfect. It got to be the movie that I want.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing is, frankly, call me a prequel hater, but like, it can't be any worse.
Yeah.
It can't,
Yeah.
right? Like, if they start talking about the roughness of sand, then I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
But I honestly, no, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great.
Yeah. I think sometimes people get in the danger of looking at spoilers to the film.
Mm-hmm.
And while they don't have the full picture, they start to look at the spoilers, and then they start cobbling together how it will play out.
Right.
And so they already have an idea of what the movie is in their mind, and then they
Yeah.
play it out, and
Yeah.
then they get in there, and it's not quite how they...
Yeah, and then expectations or whatever let down.
And so I think for those people that are fans that haven't spoiled themselves, I think they're going to be in for a treat. That's my hope.
No, I really hope so.
What
ahead.
do you want to see?
Oh, man. Like, I've got a laundry list, right? I mean, this is like getting the proverbial like Sears Christmas catalog as a kid and just circling everything. Yeah. I think, okay, so some of the things I want to see, and I know that this is like completely like silly and petty and so minute, and it won't throw me off one bit if it doesn't happen, but after the opening crawl, I want to see him pan down.
Yeah.
I know that's dumb, but I'm just like, just tip of the hat.
Yeah.
But I want to obviously see just a rich story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want to see. I want to have that moment where I think I'm brought to like cheering as a dude that's in his mid-40s. I want to be able to like make me cheer aloud in the theater.
Yeah.
And make that moment for everybody.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been speculation and rumors about potential like big death. Mm-hmm. And cool, like I'm prepared for that. Like, make me cry too. I'm like, make me feel like I felt when I saw Empire as a kid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you?
I sort of want a New Hope experience.
Yeah.
I think, and we talked about this on the podcast recently, and culturally, there's a lot of similarities to the culture of the 1970s. Obviously, it's not exact, but
right.
You know, in the 70s, we were in this kind of this shadow of the Nixon administration, the shadow of Vietnam.
Yeah.
There was, we were moving into issues with gas prices, getting out of control.
Right. Yeah.
Like, there was just a lot of fear. And we live in a very similar culture where we have a great deal of division, a great deal of issues of race in our country, racism.
Right.
And there just seems to be this need for hope. And there's many ways you can communicate hope.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons why I think the film's going to be a huge hit, obviously it's hyped to be a huge hit, but I think it'll sustain itself because we'll see a film that will probably have a lot of similarities to A New Hope. It'll probably be very rousing, like you said. It'll probably have this great climactic moment.
Yeah.
And you'll want to cheer. And my hope is that we'll leave the theater happier than when we went in.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing I want to see. Now, more on like kind of a more detailed level. Like I have tons of questions that I want answered.
Yeah.
Right.
What's at the top of that list?
Who the new actors are in terms of their relationship to, like Kathleen Kennedy came out, you know, in the Costco connection of all places and wrote this like, you know, or she was interviewed and she said in the interview that these saga stories, the episodes, episode 7, 8, 9, they're Skywalker stories. And so obviously it isn't going to end with Leia and Luke. So who's the next?
Right.
And so I would like to have that answered. Like that's the main thing. And you know, on the podcast, I've talked a lot about my hopes of who will be a Skywalker.
Right. Yeah, right.
But you know, that's one. I want to know. Also, I'm fascinated with the direction they'll go with the villains, and I would love to know who Snoke is. And obviously, the really hardcore fans have been debating: is this Darth Plagueis? Is this you know? Is this a new character? And there was spoilers that came out this week, you know, of a drawing in a Spanish magazine. Right. And people are making it. Yeah. I found Snoke, because I like Andy Serkis so much. I love his work in Planet of the Apes and Lord of the Rings. I really can't wait to see that character. Yeah. And see who he is. Yeah. And so there's that mystery, you know, and Alejandro and I, we talked on the, you know, off air, anything. We've talked about, are the Sith done? And we sort of had a little mini debate about that on the last podcast. Right. And so, are the Sith done? Is it a new faction of evil? And so those questions really fascinate me as a fan. And so that's kind of what I want to have answered.
So do you think, like, given all the hype and all of the press and all of the resources put behind this including like toy marketing and all that stuff, right? You can't walk into a Target or a Kohl's or a Walmart and just not be like bombarded from clothing to toys to whatever. Let's say for whatever reason it doesn't meet box office expectations. Let's say it doesn't get to the #1 spot. Is it still a successful movie? Let's say it's a good story, it meets those things, but will there be let down because it doesn't claim the #1 title? I don't know.
I think there's a few ways you can go with that. I think one, the press loves to promote like redemption stories, and the press also likes to bury people.
Absolutely. Well, it sells, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's sensational.
Right.
And I think if it, like, you know, let's say it makes $150 million its opening weekend. Yeah. I think the press would spin it in a way to where they would say it's a failure. Yeah. And keep in mind, I don't know the exact numbers, but like, I think the highest grossing December film was The Hobbit a few years ago. I could be wrong, and it was like, I don't think it topped 100 million.
Yeah, I have
like that opening.
No idea.
But what I'm saying is, like, so you could have a Star Wars film that shatters the record by $50 million. It's December. I mean, think about like the, you know, Upper East Coast. Right. Like, if there's snow, man, it's not going to be easy to go running out to the theater. We're in California. We don't have to worry about that as much. But there's areas.
The weather report is it could drop down to the 50s. So.
Oh, yeah. So might need to wear my winter coat. But wintertime diminishes movie ticket sales, and I have a hunch that it's going to hit 200 million. Wow. And I've heard some people say, like, beyond that, it's such an event film, and the way it's being hyped and the excitement around it. I mean, you know, I have students that are not that interested in Star Wars or geeky kind of things, and
I hope they're not passing your class.
They're failing. They're failing. And they know how to pass.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But, you know, it's like they're interested. Yeah. And so they want to go check it out. And they're talking about, hey, I'm going to watch all the movies. You know, how do I watch them? And so I think it's going to make a lot, but I wonder if it goes below that 200.
Right.
or you know it hits 150 or something, like the press will be, oh, it's a failure.
Yeah.
And I think people with clearer heads will say, no, it's not. And one of the things about the winter films, like Avatar's the biggest grossing film, came out in December.
Right.
And it just sustained itself. I don't think it's going to quite play out that way like Avatar did, where it was like having a small percentage drop week to week to week.
Right.
But I think what we'll see is a massive opening weekend. And then the other way the press could kind of spin failure is because it's so big. Let's say it makes $230 million opening weekend, and then drops like people typically say. Well, people typically say, you know, if it drops like more than 50%, oh, this is bad sign.
Yeah.
But if it's so high, it drops down like, I mean, it could drop down to like
only 130
million. You know,
Yeah.
people might spend that as, and it's going to already be at like $300 million.
Right.
And so I'm sure there will be people in the press that will be able to spin something out of this.
Well, I think so much of that comes to personal preference, because I was one of the latter parts of the ticket buying public that went to see Avatar.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't that impressed. Like it was a good film, but like to me it didn't didn't warrant the hype that it had gotten.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting for like the non-Star Wars fans to see if they're compelled by the story, by the film, things like that.
Maybe want to go see it a second time. Yeah.
Right.
I'm real curious about how that's going to play out. And I have some friends that do no lie, they do it's like a fantasy sports, but it's with box office. And they have a winter season and a summer season.
Nice.
And they literally draft films, and they they get a certain amount of money allocated, and then they draft films, and then they and you know, with this winter, it's like their winter season. It's like everybody was gunning for Star Wars because it could just destroy everyone else. Yeah. The other thing, you know, that I have this like small tiny fear.
Yeah.
And it is that it will be too much like A New Hope. Do you remember a few years back?
Too much like a good film.
Well, no.
Horrible.
I want to see enough different. Does that make sense? I want to see Star Wars.
So I get that. So we had like with the Star Killer base thing, we're just like, oh, another Death Star. Really?
Exactly.
Really?
Exactly. And it's small. Like it's a small fear, but I don't
Yeah.
want to see the same narrative story beats.
Yeah.
I want to be a little surprised.
But here's the thing that I think that's going to like push back against that, and that is we got a PG-13 rating.
Yeah.
So at the very least, I think Stormtroopers are maybe be able to hit something this time.
Let's hope.
And I think going back to some of the other rumors and things that have been out there is, I think there's going to be like they're going to show some like possible like deaths, and that could even be like a member of the group that we love.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think even if the good guys win in the end.
Yeah.
And with all the speculation of Mark Hamill's part maybe being very small, might just be kind of like that end moment, very much like Empire. Mm-hmm. I think that they're going to pull the right elements from those two films, A New Hope and Empire, and create something that's going to be very compelling. I'm banking on it.
I believe that.
I get it.
There's this little seed in my brain, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like 2006 maybe.
Yeah.
Superman Returns came out.
Yeah.
And Bryan Singer made that. Great director, and it was almost a beat for beat a remake of the original Superman.
Yeah.
And it was well made. You know, good production value, decent dialogue, some really interesting story elements, but because of that kind of it wasn't enough new for me.
Yeah.
And
so, let me ask this, I want to jump in there.
Yeah.
So which is a bigger fear? That they kind of repeat the plot and storyline, or that it's a dog like the prequels?
Oh, my big fear. I don't even entertain the dog like the prequels. Like that
Right.
can't.
All right.
I'll suck my thumb and lay in bed if it turns out to be like the prequels. Like it'll.
Hello, crisis prevention.
Well, you know, it's there are things I love about the prequels. I truly do. Yes. You just broke the fourth wall. There are things I love about the prequels, but overall I was underwhelmed, you know, and I was disappointed. And with The Phantom Menace, you know, I saw it and saw it and saw it and saw it, and I was in such I was in such denial.
Yeah.
You know, and
maybe it'll get better than next.
Yes. Maybe I could just watch the Darth Maul scene.
Yes.
I have never really entertained that it will be like the prequels.
Yeah.
Even from what we've seen in the trailers and the commercials, I don't see prequel at all.
Okay, so let me ask that then, because, or follow that, because George Lucas was interviewed recently. He's seen the film. He wouldn't come out and say, I liked it, but he literally said, like, this is the film that the fans will enjoy. It's the one they've been longing to see. Should we care what George thinks?
Gosh, I've actually really thought about this.
Yeah.
I don't. Part of me is like, shut up, George. Seriously. And there's another part where I recognize that he played such a huge part of my childhood.
Right. Yeah.
And I want to like honor him and thank him and like created Star Wars.
Right.
I can't think of life without it. I mean, I was 4, you know, when the original film came out. And so there's this kind of deep respect for him, but there's another part of me that I can see how, I don't know, success went to his head, or I don't know him. Yeah. I just know what he's produced, and I've known, you know, the things I've read, and a part of me is, can't he just be happy that the fans are happy? So like if we, you know, if we love the movie and we're celebrating it, can't he just be happy that people are happy about this world that he's created and someone else playing in that sandbox?
Yeah. It would seem not.
Yeah.
It would seem not.
Yeah. So, you know, that's, what do you think about it? Like,
I've gone back and forth just like you. I mean, at first I was like, you know, the guy got paid $4 billion. I like his right to comment was purchased.
Yeah.
But I went back to that same thing. It was like, literally, it was earlier this week. I'm trying to imagine, like, what would my childhood have been like without the action figures and the role playing and all that stuff that was wrapped up into Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to answer it.
Yeah.
Like literally, I obviously there were times when I got into like other things, but eventually like the Stompers were incorporated into Star Wars action figure play, right? And had like the little vehicles like running through guys or whatever else. And so I don't know. I care what he says for the standpoint of human interest, and I want him to like it. I want him to like, hey, something I created is going beyond me. Like my legacy is continuing on, right? Whether I'm in charge of it or not. Very much like a parental thing. Like our kids are going to go on and do stuff. Some things we'll be stoked on, some things we won't be. But like ultimately, like that's my legacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess my hope, if I had one, in regards to George Lucas, was that at some point, if it was genuine, he could actually say, I enjoyed that film.
Yeah.
Like I just like as a film alone, right? Like I enjoyed the film. It was well done.
Yeah.
Instead of some kind of offhanded, sarcastic, like the fans will dig it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's probably not going to happen anytime soon.
Well, man, I got a place I got to be.
Well, hey, it's been good.
It has been good.
Let's do it again soon.
I think we should.
All right.
Yeah.